On today's episode, I am so excited to be joined by Dr. Joli Hamilton, who is the relationship coach for couples who color outside the lines. So she is a research psychologist, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and AASECT AASECT
That's
certified certified sexuality educator and professor of human sexuality. She holds a doctorate in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute, where she studied the impact of jealousy on relationships. Over the past 2 decades, she has started a dozen business ventures ranging from clothing design to personal training to providing birth and lactation doula services, all while managing her own relationships, pursuing her graduate degrees, and raising and homeschooling 7 kids. Joli, welcome to Monetize the Mic.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jess. I'm super happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we have had the pleasure of working together. You're one of our clients at Interview Connections. We get you booked on podcasts, and we are also coaching you in our Monetize the Mic group coaching and mastermind program. And it's been so great getting to know you through coaching you, because the thing that has impressed me so much is your ability. First, I was like, it's your ability to implement and take action. Like when you get coaching, when you get guidance, you take the action, which is like everything, right? Like you can hire a coach, but if you don't take the actions, you don't see the results. And then as we were talking more, you're talking about how your focus as a relationship coach is consensual non-monogamy, like that. I mean, I know you help lots of different couples, but that seems to be the through line because you're in a consensual non-monogamous marriage. And so I was thinking to myself, the through line of your life seems to be trust. Like in business, it's trusting the process. It's trusting that it's going to happen, and it's trusting yourself to make it happen. I can't imagine a relationship style that requires more trust than consensual non-monogamy. So talk to me a little bit about what role trust plays in your life.
Okay. This is the most fabulous question I have been asked in a long time, because like you said, my academic research is about jealousy. The flip side of jealousy is trust.
Yes.
That is its corollary. And it took me years of studying to realize, oh, the reason I can tolerate stories of jealousy and experiencing, because when you start researching something, it comes to live in your house. The reason I can tolerate that is because I have this deep sense of trust. Not just that things will work out, but that I can roll with the punches, make change, that I can actually meet the challenges as the gift that they are for me to keep becoming who I want to be in business, in love, as a parent, as a daughter. That's been my gift. I've been given lots and lots of opportunities to learn how to trust the hard way. I wasn't raised in a stable home. I wasn't raised to imagine that I could trust myself. And so I had to do it the hard way by showing myself that when everything else was difficult, when it seemed like what I was doing wasn't going to work and it wasn't going to pay off, I could trust myself. I was going to come through for myself. Once that was in place, everything else got easier.
Oh my God. Tell me about, I want to dig in a little bit to consensual non-monogamy. Like, I just want to really address the elephant in the room. Like, how did you decide that you wanted to be in a consensual non-monogamy? Like, have you always been non-monogamous? Like, how did you and your husband come to decide that you wouldn't have a monogamous marriage? Like, I just want to first address that, because there is going to be, for everyone listening, I am going to tie that into business because there is a through line, but I first just want to be like, what?
That's a great way to put it. What? Huh? Why? And why? Why would you do that to yourself? There are a lot of ways for people to come to non-monogamy. And I came to it as a decision. I fell in love with someone. I was currently married. And when I brought these feelings out, and I didn't want to lie. Cheating and lying was never on the table for me. I am way too honest a human for that. When I brought that out, I was met with some options. And one of the options was, hey, yeah, okay, cool. The person I fell in love with, his wife was like, okay, cool. We've been doing this for a long time. This isn't a problem. And my brain broke into 12 million pieces.
Had you not known that they had been doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess in the background, I kind of like had an inkling, but it wasn't an explicit thing. And here's the trouble. When you change the rules in your relationship, you have a fresh start. You have this period of time when you can get things right. And you have a period of time when you can screw up everything. You can wreck your whole life.
Yeah.
The metaphor I use is that I took my whole life and I threw it in the wood chipper and just decided that it would be okay and it would work itself out. 12 years later, I can say, honestly, it absolutely worked out. However, I did it the clumsiest, most non-thought out way possible. And that means I learned all the things not to do. And I also learned that people come to non-monogamy for a lot of different reasons. Some people come to it philosophically. They're like, okay, this feels like a better thing. I won't control what my partner does. Some people come to it because they feel oriented that way. They're like, I've always been in love with more than one person. That just happens. And so I want to do it honestly. And some people come to it just from the place of, I want to engage in this with this particular person. And I could be happy also in monogamy, but with this particular person at this particular time, this works. So choice, orientation, or philosophy, all of these came together for me. And I realized that I was in my sweet spot. I love this style of relationship because it relies on high communication, which is obviously something I love, and a flexibility with your partner that requires you to stay like alive and it, like really in the relationship. And that to me means that we have the possibility to be anything, including potentially monogamous again. It's not an either or thing. So while it is the elephant in the room, it's not as scary as people think.
So communication, trust, these are all things that are crucial in entrepreneurship. You know, I've been in business for 8 years, and whether it's working with clients or team members, employees, vendors, it all requires so much communication and trust. You know, in fact, Margie will tell me this. She's like, you need to trust them. Like, because if there is a lack of trust or a lack of communication, that's where things go in the wood chipper. That's where things break down. So talk to me about how the things you learned about trust and communication in your relationships, how has that played out in business as an entrepreneur? And just give us a brief background of your bit, because you've like built businesses, sold, you know, so you're like a very mature business owner.
Yeah, I've been around the block. I started my first businesses when I was a kid. And so I don't even count those when I count my actual total. I count starting when I was 18 and I was running my first custom clothing business.
Wow.
I found that my relationship and this particular relationship, so this is my second marriage, and it grew out of a very, very difficult time. But because we knew we wanted it to be a lifelong commitment, we decided to do some things that I don't know whether I would have decided to do if I thought, oh, he's a cool person, I want to hang out with him. We committed to reparenting ourselves in our relationship. And that was what led
What does that mean? Reparenting yourself?
Yeah, reparenting. So we all have childhood wounds. I'm a depth psychologist, Jungian psychologist. So I really believe in looking at those early models we got and understanding how they're impacting us today because they're alive inside of us and they can take over at any moment. So when I talk about reparenting, I mean allowing myself to have sort of an inner dialogue with my child self and all the other parts, not just the little child, but the teenager, the rebellious teenager, and my absolutely like spastic early entrepreneur person, all of these parts of me, reparenting them and being there for them so that they stopped acting out, so that they could chill out and I could become the mature business owner that I had always meant to be. But instead, I had a pattern that I played out over and over again of starting a business, being quite successful, doing really well, and then bailing 4 years in. 4 years, over and over and over again. Every 4 years, I would magically be distracted or need a new thing, and it wasn't because I wasn't succeeding. In fact, the theme seemed to be I would bail right when things were about to get really good, right then. When I entered this marriage, I also had that opportunity. Things got really, really rough between year 4 and year 5, really rough. And I had to look very closely at what this pattern was, what this 4-year cycle was, because I was going to lose the person who I knew was a soulmate of mine. I knew was somebody I was supposed to have in my life if I couldn't figure out why I always needed to change gears at that 4 to 5 year mark. When I did that and I stuck it out, and my lovely person is now, we're 12 years in now. Yeah, a magical thing happened. I was able to start committing to myself in every realm. So I then committed to a PhD program, which takes at least 7 years to complete. I committed to my business, which now has just sort of magically come up from the roots up, and really in a strong way. I can feel how it can grow, and I can grow with it and not abandon it. I don't need to panic. So it really, for me, has been a process of learning to trust myself in love, and then saying, oh yeah, I can show up for myself even when things get really awesome. That
That's
sounds
so,
weird, right?
yeah, that's so interesting, that pattern of, once you hit that 4 to 5 year mark, you notice that every few years something happens. And is that like a self-sabotage thing?
Yeah, I traced it back and I did a whole bunch of work. I did some dream work. I do a very specific kind of dream work, a Jungian pattern. I
Mhm.
also do, I do some, I do something called orgasmic imagination, which is awesome because, I mean, just sounds awesome, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what I did was I went into my imaginal realm and really explored what the heck I was doing. And what I found out was I was terrified of having to be visible as a successful woman, because that was something that my family of origin, was not going to be able to tolerate. And they weren't going to be mean, but they were going to abandon me. They were like, not because they wanted to, but because it didn't fit into their story.
Hmm.
That is a powerful message to be carrying around. If you get too big, in fact, Australians call it the tall poppy syndrome, right?
I've
Like,
heard of that.
yep,
Yes.
like you. So I didn't so much feel that my family was cutting me down as I was constraining my growth so that I would fit in with the group. So when I noticed that, and I don't just mean like when I heard it, this took 6 years of processing it
Yeah.
to really get it and say, oh, it's me. It's just me. I am the only thing standing in the way of being a powerhouse who is also visible. I had tried to put every co-owner, every business partner, everybody else out in front with every excuse in the book. I was like, no, I'm not the right look for the gym. I can't be the front of a CrossFit gym. Oh, I'm not the right look to sell my designer clothes. I'm going to always use models. Every excuse. But you know what? That's junk.
That's so interesting. I interviewed Mia Hewitt, one of our other clients, about this, and she was talking about the similar thing. Why do people always kind of put someone else out in front? Like, what holds you back from being visible? So, can you take us back? You've been with Interview Connections, I think, for almost a year. I think it was like last September. What was that decision-making process like, where you made this investment into being visible? Because you were like running your relationship coaching therapy. I don't know if it was like a therapy practice but you were
Counseling.
like
Yeah.
counseling, coaching, like you were doing it. You had like a steady stream, but then something happened where you were like, I am going to invest in getting visible so I can grow. And I'm just seeing such amazing breakthroughs with you as an entrepreneur. So take us to that time where you were like, all right, I'm going to get visible.
So you want to hear about the time when I was crying in the hammock a lot? A lot of crying in the
I
hammock.
love nothing more than listen, I've shared a story on this podcast about how I cried recently. So I get it.
It's very real. I am an incredibly gregarious person. I love to entertain people. Absolutely. I'm a Myers-Briggs ENTJ to the core. So you would think that being visible wouldn't be a problem. But in fact, I have a deeply felt problem, especially when it comes to social media or podcasts, places where people are going to be able to see me sort of forever. It's not just, hey, in the moment. Now it's a forever thing. So every single time I was posting back in last August, because I was releasing a book in October and I knew I needed to start being visible. Okay, wait, I actually needed to start being visible a year or two before that, but
Yeah.
it was finally important.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I made a post, I would lay in the hammock for like 2 hours writing this thing and then crying before I could press the send button. Just actually weeping. And what I found is that I had to go through that process. And I did that for maybe 3 weeks before I happened to take one of your lovely master classes. And I'm taking notes. And I think I got to day 3 when I was like, oh, all that crying. Like if I keep up with that as my pattern, I absolutely cannot succeed. I can't because it's just going to take too much energy away. You guys were talking about energy management and really showing up and being of service to people. And I'm like, I want to do all those things. I can't do them while I'm crying in the hammock. Okay. And so when you made me the offer, like, okay, we're going to make you visible and here's the investment. I remember thinking that it was literally the choice between success and failure. It was that was the day. I had thought that day would come when like the book launched or when I got my PhD or whatever. No, it was the day when I handed my credit card over and said, okay, I'm in this for the long haul. This isn't about 1 minute. This is about the long haul, which is the same thing I tell my clients. They can't commit to their relationship week to week, pay a coach week to week, because then you're in a relationship week to week.
Yeah.
So when you gave me that offer, I had the opportunity to say yes to myself, big picture. And so here I am a year later. Not only am I not crying on my social media posts, but I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of running my business is increasing my controversiality in that world and showing up for myself. And I feel great about myself because of it.
So can you zoom in a little bit more? So I feel like right now we're seeing you crying in the hammock, doing your social media posts. And I feel like I'm sort of up on like a bird's eye view. Can you just zoom in more? Like I want to get some more details about why, like
Yeah.
why were you up? Like, why were you crying when posting? Like, what was there for you? Yeah. What was happening? Why was it upsetting and scary for you to post and get visible?
I had at least 3 inner voices going on. One of them was a little girl who I can still see her little cowboy boots. They were like little pointy cowboy boots. And she's 5 years old and she shows up to kindergarten for the first day and everything feels wrong. And she feels completely closed out of everything. She's super tiny. She's like a whole head shorter than everybody else. And no one can see her. Literally, no one can see her. She's ignored everywhere. And she starts to feel like she deserves to be ignored. That little girl was still kicking around in there big time. So I would just lay there feeling like, no, you're not supposed to be seen. But then there was also this really, really upset woman inside of me who was judgmental about what it meant to look professional on social media. Like, would I be manipulative? Would I be seen as too big for my britches? Like, who was going to attack me for that? I had this voice that was so loud about the idea that sales was manipulation that I couldn't even remember that if I didn't offer my services, I couldn't help anyone. And then there was a third voice, and that was actually, sadly, my father's voice. I know he loved me very much, but I could hear his voice, which was to stay small and to choose the easiest path every single day. Always choose the easiest thing. That was literally what he told me. My father and I had a really rough time because of that. He just could not understand me. And he wound up passing away in his sleep 8 days before my book launch, 6 days before my book launched in October. So I had said yes to you. And I knew this visibility was coming and I knew that he was going to ignore it. And I felt so much pain about it. I was so terrified that I was going to be visible and he was still going to leave me feeling invisible. And then he passed away and a magical thing happened. The psychologist James Hillman talks about how when someone dies, like all the junk burns away and you're left with like what you really wanted from them. That's what I got. Did not want my father to be gone. But when he was, there was no longer this voice inside me saying, yeah, I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look. I don't care what you do. It freed me to start loving him again and to start loving myself and being visible again. Wow. That's a really tough thing. And the reason I can share that story with a clear conscience is that my father was so practical that I can't think of a single thing he would be prouder of than me stepping into myself because he was gone. Like, oh, okay, you can do that now. Our stories are twisted up.
Wow.
We all are. And that's how I can step forward, by speaking the truth about how I'm twisted up.
Mm. Oh my goodness. That's incredible. So for our listeners that are having that fear, because I know we have a lot of our clients listen to this podcast. So yes, I love that you're all working with us and getting interviewed. And then we have listeners that haven't made that investment yet to commit to the visibility. And maybe they're relating a lot to what you're saying. Maybe they've got some stuff happening when they do stuff to get visible, like post on social media. What would you say to them? Like, you're a PhD, you've done tons of therapy, you provide coaching to other people, right? You've got all these tools. What about the person that doesn't have the level of education you have? Like, what are their steps to breaking through the things that are holding them back from being visible?
Yeah. I think the number one tool, and this is available to all of us wherever we are, is our imagination. So, depth psychology is rooted in the idea that we need to take the unconscious really seriously. Cool, awesome. And also that what we can imagine is what we can move toward and what we can process psychologically. So, if somebody is stuck, and this is the tool that I used, I would lay in that hammock and cry, and then I would imagine what would happen. And I would have a bunch of negative imaginations that would happen, and I would thoughtfully discard them and say, okay, that goes in that's not going to happen pile. And then I would force myself at first to actively imagine a positive outcome, a person who I had never met before, just seeing something and saying, oh, that really helped. And as I did that, as I imagined the positive outcomes more and more, obviously there was a mindset shift. Obviously that changes things. The idea of the imagination is often lost on us. Like when we grow up, we forget, like play with it. I would say if you're terrified right now, play with the idea that this could work. So take like lightly rather than always forcing, play with it lightly. What would happen if it did? When I started imagining that, all of a sudden there was a possibility. And that's all I needed. All I needed was a chance. I just needed to give it a chance. I didn't have to. Well, that was the beauty of signing on for a year, right? All I had to do was say yes once and
Yes.
then follow my foot. Just go with it. Okay, I'm on this ride. Like getting on a roller coaster, you strap in. Okay, I guess we're going now.
I took my kids to a local carnival last night and we went on some rides, and it was like we were on, I think it's called the Pharaoh, and it's like a big boat and it goes up really high and then the other direction really high. And I'm sitting there in between my two kids. Lucy will be 6 this weekend, so 6 and 8. And I'm just first like, how do I have kids old enough to do this ride? Like the last time we went to a carnival 3 years ago, they were going on the little toddler rides, and now we're on these like rides that are just whipping us around. And we're on it. And first they're like, woo. And then it starts going higher and higher. And they both go, I think I'm going to throw up. And I'm hating it because like I'm going on it for them, but like I'm past my roller coaster days, and we're all holding on. And I just keep saying deep breaths, just deep breaths. And I look at them too, and we're all just, everyone else is screaming and freaking out. And I'm just sitting there with my kids doing like mindful exercises, like deep breaths, breathe. And I hear Lucy breathing in deep. But yeah, I think that's like applicable, right? If you're on the roller coaster of visibility, you just got to take deep breaths and stay with it. You can't jump off.
No, you can't jump off like that. That is not a possibility. You cannot do that. I love that you do that. I learned so much about how to show up in the world by watching my kids. My kids are 14 to 21 now. Mm-hmm. So watching them step out into all these scary things, I'm like, what is my excuse? What is my excuse? They do amazing things. They step into worlds they don't know. Yeah. And show up for themselves. I know. They're great role models.
I know they teach us so much. We're in line to do the scrambler, and they're going on without me because we only had a certain number of tickets left. And I was like, literally, as we're in line, I was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Are you sure?" I kept questioning them because I was like, "That looks awful," and they were like, "Mom, we're sure.
We got this." Oh yeah. Yeah. I still have those moments. I'll be somewhere with the kids. And I'm like, you're going to go up where?
You're sure you want to
Okay.
do this?
Deep cleansing breath. It's all fine.
Breathe deeply.
Yeah.
But they had the best time.
Yeah. There's the adventure right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the door I want them to always feel like they can walk through, like
Mhm.
making a choice that feels right for them. And that was what didn't feel like I had. This has been the process of growing up, of reparenting myself, is training myself that it is actually safe to take calculated risks. And in fact, that's
Yes.
the only way I'm going to be in alignment with my goals.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So, Dr. Joli Hamilton, how can you support our listeners? Please tell everyone how they can connect with you. I know we talked about how you're the relationship coach for couples who color outside the lines, consensual non-monogamy. You can kind of give a rundown of the different types of couples and relationships that you really specialize in. So if we've got people in the audience that are like, oh, that's me, kind of just share a little bit and how people can connect with you.
Yeah. So I have three audiences that come to me the most often. One is the couple that's been consensually non-monogamous and they've been trying to work it out, but they keep hitting rough patches. And so they're questioning whether that's really right for them. Because I've been there, done that. I totally get it. And not all people want to stay the course. So I'm good at
Mhm.
helping people transition through relationship changes. The next group of people they're people who are in complicated relationships. It's not just a couple. There's more than two people involved. And so we have to get into it. So we use a whole relationship constellation strategy and we work with everybody. And here's where I do something different. We also meet individually so that we start to really piece the puzzle together. And the third group is people who are new to it. They've maybe just heard the term or they are trying to figure out how this could incorporate into their life. And they're super scared because they don't want to lose what they have. That is a beautiful time to get an expert's handholding, take you through a whole year. And that's what I do. I take you through a whole year because two things have to happen. Some shit has to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And excuse my language. And you got to go through a holiday season. Whatever your holidays are, you got to get through that. Once you've done that, you can accomplish anything. So I love to work with people in any of these stages. This is totally my jam.
Awesome. And where can folks find you?
People can find me at my website. It's jolihamilton.com, Joli Hamilton, like the musical, nice and easy. And yeah, just you can find all my socials there.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely reach out to Joli if you resonated with what she said today. And she is going to be on our mindset and energy panel in our Monetize the Mic conference, which is kicking off Tuesday, August 10th. So if you're listening to this right as it's coming out live, go get your ticket. It's interviewconnections.com. We've got a big banner right there at the top. You can't miss it. Click save your seat and we'll see you there. Thanks, Joli.
Thanks.